The Convenience Store by the Sea by Sonoko Machida. Translated by Bruno Navasky. Chapter 1. My convenience is your convenience. Mitsuri Nakao was living a full life. She'd married her college sweetheart 17 years ago, and with her son, a high school student, they were a family of 3. She worried a little about her son. He was in a rebellious phase, but otherwise she hadn't a care in the world. She got along with her husband. Her in-laws lived in the neighboring prefecture, close, but not too close, and her own parents were in good health as well. She and her husband had purchased a single-family home 11 years ago, which was modest but comfortable, and they were regular with the mortgage payments. A few years ago, she'd taken on a part-time job at a local convenience store to supplement their income, and it was all going well there. Actually, it had been going much better than well. The benefits there far outstripped the salary. Anyway, for now, let's just say that Mitsuri Nakao was living a full life. I see the lineup is changing next month, announced Nomiya, Mitsuri's part-time colleague, as he peered at the digital tablet in her hand. She was busy restocking. Cold soba noodles and chilled Chinese ramen. Oh, I get it. These are the summer items. It's almost July, she replied. Came on fast, didn't it? Tenderness has the best ramen of all the convenience stores, said Nomiya. It's got a fantastic balance of flavors and textures. Although the portions are on the delicate side, so I have to have 2. Nomiya was a first-year student at Kyushu Kairitsu University. He'd started part-time at Tenderness when he enrolled. He used to be on the wrestling team, so his body was bulging with muscles, and though the store issued him an oversized uniform, his chest and shoulders always seemed about to burst through it. Apparently, he had won no end of tournaments during high school. Kyushu Kairitsu's team was a real powerhouse, but Nomiya gave it up when he left high school and wouldn't say why. Mitsuri, for her part, didn't feel the need to bother him about it. She turned to Nomiya. I'm surprised. I'd have thought your regular go-to would be the beef bowl with summer vegetables. For young men, the beef bowl was the big winner on the summer menu. The charcoal grilled beef and colorful array of vegetables were appealing to the eye, and it had more rice than the regular bento box lunches, so it was very satisfying. Nope, that one's special. But yeah, the rice at Tenderness is also really good. The white rice. Well, that's because we take a lot of care with it. Bento, desserts, all the food, really. Mitsuri tapped confidently at the numbers on her handheld screen as she replied. She had been working at the Golden Villa Tenderness branch in Mijiko for 4 years now, and had a good sense for how every product there would sell. Tenderness was a convenience store chain that operated only in Kyushu. Their motto was caring for people, caring for you, and as far as convenience chains went, they were second to none. The Golden Villa Tenderness branch was about halfway down Osakamachi Avenue in Mijiko, the harbor district of the city of Kitakyushu, on the ground floor of the Golden Villa apartment building. It was located in a quiet neighborhood, slightly removed from the station house and former Mitsui Social Club in the sightseeing area of the old port town, famous for its retro architecture. Patrons tended to be locals more often than tourists. A gentle music box melody drifted through the store when the automatic doors slid open and shut, signaling the arrival of a customer. The two of them turned their heads towards the door, just as an old man in a white tank top and bright red overalls came in. It would still be a while before the rainy season was officially over, but the man was dressed for high summer. He sported a beard that obscured half his face, had a bald head, and there was a sharp glint in his eye. The arms jutting out of his tank top were broad and muscular. He was tall, and his eyes swept the shop interior with an intimidating glare. But when he spotted Mitsuri and her colleague, his fierce demeanor brightened, and he patted each one gently on the head. "Hello, hello," he said. "You're looking sweet as always, Mitsuri." "Good morning, Shoei," she replied. "How are things in town?" Looked to me like a lot of tour groups in from China today. They said they're visiting the area around the station and then off to Corrado via the Kamon ferry. Shoei Umeda was a local celebrity. He pedaled all over town with a stack of homemade sightseeing maps of Majiko in the rack of his bright red cargo bike. He looked intimidating, even scary, but because of his unconventional appearance and unexpectedly friendly demeanor, the local children were all fond of him and called him Old Red. "They asked me if I was an actor," he said with pride. "Well, now, I've been mistaken for a movie star more than once in my life. I can't help that." If Mitsuri had to say, she actually thought that with his bald head, beard, and fierce gaze, he looked more like Bodhidharma, the famously cranky ancient Zen priest. So much so, in fact, that one could be forgiven for thinking the historic character had been reincarnated right here in Majiko. They all wanted to take a picture with me. I was mobbed, and I ran out of maps. Now I've got to go home and print some more. Shoei chortled like a movie villain, which was just everyday behavior for him. "So that's it for today's patrol," he said apologetically. Shoei was the self-proclaimed tourism ambassador for Majiko, and a self-appointed guardian angel as well, maintaining peace in the neighborhood. While he was peddling around, handing out his tourist maps, he often stopped by the store when he needed a break. "Nothing to worry about here, Shoei," Mitsuri said, laughing. "The store manager is off today." "Oh, is he?" Shoei replied, his face brightening. "It's quiet when he's away." "Exactly. So we're okay. In that case, I'll head home with no worries." "Well, see you." With a nod of satisfaction, Shoei hopped on his cargo bike and off he rode. "Take care, Shoei." Nomiya called after him with feeling. Shoei was a dynamo, always bursting with energy, perhaps because he rode his cargo bike day in, day out, no matter the weather. People said he was well over 80, but his skin had a radiant glow to it, and when he pedaled past on his cargo bike there was not a hint of weakness in those leg muscles. "When I grow old, I'd like to be rugged like that," she thought. The door melody played again, and when she looked over, another older man had come into the shop, this one very thin and leaning on a cane. The man mopped the sweat from his temples with a towel and, spotting Mitsuri and Nomiya, made a curt grunt of recognition. "Good day, Mr. Yurata." "It's hotter than usual, isn't it?" Nomiya raised his voice in greeting, but Yurata's face puckered into a frown. Yurata lived alone in the neighborhood, and unlike Shoei, he had a difficult disposition. Perhaps Nomiya's bright and cheerful demeanor bothered him, but he never failed to find fault with him. No need for you to shout, young man. My hearing is just fine. If you have so much extra energy, why don't you go get some exercise instead of grubbing for spare change here? He spoke sternly, shaking the tip of his cane at Nomiya. Look sharp now. I came to eat. Hop to it and get my lunch ready. Nomiya pursed his lips for a moment in annoyance, then quickly covered it over with a smile. Right. One lunch special coming right up. Nomiya dashed to the fridge in the stockroom to retrieve a bento, while Mitsuri called out to Yurata, "Please wait over here." Without waiting for his reply, she walked over to the dine-in area, which was separated from the store by a doorway. It wasn't particularly roomy behind the register. Nomiya returned holding a bento and a bottle of tea, wedged his expansive physique into the narrow space to heat the food in the microwave, recorded the entry on a check sheet, and then headed to the dining area, where Yurata was waiting. Well, it should be getting pretty busy soon, Mitsuri murmured softly, checking the clock. Yurata always led the charge, then around the time he was about to finish, the rest of the seniors would trickle in one by one. The Tenderness offered a service called Yellow Flag Lunch. For a flat fee, participants received a bento lunch special each day. The service was particularly popular with older customers. The store changed the ingredients daily, of course, to keep it interesting, but the primary selling point for the seniors was that they got to tell everyone how they were feeling that day. The apartments on floors 2 to 7 of the Golden Villa building were reserved for senior citizens. Originally, the lunch service focused on these building residents. It spared them the trouble of preparing lunch and gave them a place to socialize when they took their meals in the private lounge next to Tenderness, now open to the public as a dine-in area. Also, it served as an early warning system if the unexpected should befall any of the residents. That was the original idea, but slowly and steadily, the number of participants had increased to include area residents from outside the building. Yurata was one of these. I'm back. Nomiya returned with an unhappy look on his face. It wasn't hard to imagine that Yurata must have had something to do with it. Before Mitsuri could ask, he muttered, "Am I annoying?" He yelled at me. He said having a useless, muscle-bound fool standing next to him made the food taste bad. He told me to get lost. Nomiya had a delicate, sensitive nature that existed in inverse proportion to his massive frame. The slightest word from a customer would wound him and cause him to brood. Mitsuri tried to help, telling him to lighten up and take it easy, but it seemed he was unable to take her advice. Mr. Yurata is rough on everyone. Don't beat yourself up about it. Yeah, but it's hard when people speak to a person that way. Does he have to act superior to everyone just because he's older? Nomiya balled up his fists, biceps swelling as they tensed. I don't like talking like this, but that old, okay. Enough. Nomiya paused. Fortunately, the store was empty, but they couldn't get in the habit of voicing their grievances so lightly. Nomiya made an unhappy face, but kept his mouth shut. Sorry, he said, and bowed his head. I went too far. I understand how you feel, but try to keep your cool, okay? She gave him a sweet smile, and Nomiya returned the smile, stiffly. One of the nice things about Nomiya was his straightforward, unaffected manner. The door melody rang out, and a flashy young man entered the shop. He was an employee of a hair salon about a 5-minute walk away. He grabbed a ham, cheese, and lettuce sandwich and a couple of energy drinks and placed them on the counter in front of Nomiya. Even from a distance, they could see his hands were painfully red and cracked. He had only joined the salon as an apprentice 4 months ago, so he must be spending all his days shampooing, Mitsuri thought. Oh, may I also have a box of fried chicken, please? Got it, 1 fried chicken box. Nomiya briskly punched it up on the cash register. As he took a fried chicken box from the fryer shelf next to him, Mitsuri thought to herself, I'd really like to toss in an extra piece for him. Maybe it was because she was getting older, but lately when she saw hardworking young people, she always wanted to give them a leg up. Particularly this young man, with his pretty face and gaudy dyed hair, so common among the new crop of hairdressers, but which suited him well. He looked a little like a character in a manga comic book that she was currently obsessed with. Actually, she thought, she'd like to give him 2 extra pieces of chicken. She was watching his slim figure from behind as he paid his bill and turned to leave the store, when the young man suddenly stopped in his tracks. Oh, Mr. Shiba. A figure entered through the dine-in area, and recognizing him, the young hairdresser called out to him gaily. The man, dressed in street clothes instead of his uniform, was none other than Mitsuhiko Shiba, the store manager. The manager was tall, with the slender proportions of a model. And his style, well, even though he was just wearing a commonplace white shirt, chinos, and sandals, he somehow managed to make it look fashionable. Hey there, Ayumu. Taking your break? Yes, exactly. The young man, Ayumu, apparently, ran over, radiating happiness. Watching Shiba smiling gently at him, Mitsuri murmured quietly to herself, an unexpected turn of events. Mr. Shiba, please come to the salon soon. They tell me my shampoo technique has got really good, but you never come to see me. I'm so sorry. It's been difficult to get away. But I can tell from looking at your hands, Ayumu, that you've been giving it your all. Shiba took Ayumu's hand in his own. As he gently traced the fissures with his fingertips, Ayumu's cheeks blushed a deep red. You've already got the hands of a hairdresser, said Shiba. I'll come visit soon. Oh, good. I'm looking forward to it so much. I'll be waiting. Ayumu gazed at Shiba adoringly. Shiba accepted the loving gaze as if it were the most natural thing in the world and replied, I hope work goes well this afternoon, his white teeth gleaming as he smiled. Nodding repeatedly in response, Ayumu left the store, holding the hand that Shiba had touched elevated in front of him as if it were a great treasure. Mitsuri, who had been carefully watching the entire sequence of events, was at a loss for words and let out a deep sigh. The pharaoh manager had stolen this young man's heart and didn't even know it. Pharaoh manager was Mitsuri's private nickname for Shiba. He had a sort of mysterious magnetism that made him intensely attractive, so much so that she imagined invisible pheromones, love hormones, pouring out of him like water from a fountain. She didn't know for sure if it was flowing in his blood or baked into his soul, but one thing was certain, he was completely different from ordinary people. Mitsuri sometimes imagined there was a special pump inside of him, spraying out doses of pheromones on a regular basis. Shiba's face wasn't perfect. His double-lidded eyes were of slightly different sizes, and his full lips, perhaps a tad too sensual, left an unbalanced impression. But their exquisite incongruity, together with his tender shifts of expression, gave off an uncanny sort of sex appeal, like a female impersonator dancing in the kabuki theater. The scent of flower nectar seemed to follow him around, and his voice was strangely sweet as well and made her ears hum. Mitsuri was no expert in shiatsu massage, but she was pretty sure that if she squeezed him, pheromones would start to drip out of him, like water from a sponge. When Mitsuri sat with Shiba in his office for her job interview 4 years back, she worried that she had come to the wrong store. It was hard to believe that the man in front of her was a convenience store manager. But their conversation was normal, and there was nothing strange about the job description. She definitely recalled feeling confused, trying to process all the different signals coming into her brain. As it turned out, Shiba was a typical hired manager, no more, no less. She wondered for a while if there could be something going on between him and the owner due to his exceptional personal appeal, but the Golden Villa building was owned by a man in his 70s with a loving wife, which seemed to rule that out. Shiba could come across as a bit of a smooth operator, but he took his work seriously. In fact, one could say he worked too hard. Mitsuri once asked Shiba why he took the job. After all, there must have been plenty of work where he could profit from his special hold on people's feelings. She wasn't knocking convenience stores, but it did seem like a waste of his charm, which some might call a special skill. With a telling smile, Shiba responded simply, "I like convenience stores." Clearly there was something he wasn't saying. She glared at him, thinking there had to be another reason, but she hadn't yet managed to uncover it. After seeing Ayumu off, Shiba slowly turned and smiled. "Good work today, Nomiya, Nakao." But in contrast to Ayumu, Mitsuri and Nomiya's expressions didn't shift. "Thanks." "You too," they replied. The one essential condition for working at Tenderness was some degree of resistance to Shiba's allure. "Mr. Shiba, you're here on your day off?" Mitsuri asked. The owner let Shiba rent a studio apartment on the 4th floor of the building. With work just downstairs, it was an easy commute, but Mitsuri always thought it seemed too close for comfort. "It's almost time for lunch. I was thinking I might join everyone." Shiba gestured towards the room next door. "Huh?" Nomiya cried out in disbelief. "Sir, don't you want any privacy? You're there all the time. Now even on your days off. At this point, we're the only ones that offer the yellow flag lunch service. So I got curious about how it's going." "Oh, right. It was someone's suggestion, wasn't it?" asked Nomiya. What was the name? Itako? Sasebo?" "It was one of the commenters. I remember that much." "Nisiko." It was Nisiko. The founder and chairman of the Tenderness chain, a man named Horinuchi, had set up a P.O. box for suggestions, and the idea for the lunch service had come from a letter to the suggestion box. The chairman promised the customers their voices would be heard, and actually read every letter that came in. Among these, one Nisiko was a regular. Nisiko's opinions were spelled out carefully, down to the most remote details, each time. Things like Branch X in Fukuoka is next to a boys' school, so they should stock more sports drinks and oversized bento. Or Branch Y in Saga offers a lot of toys and penny candy, so the neighborhood elementary school students are happy, and so on. Whoever Nisiko was, it seemed that he or she must travel all over Kyushu for work, since their local knowledge was so extensive. This Nisiko had written a letter asking if we knew of a movement called the Yellow Flag Campaign. The original Yellow Flag Campaign was a program for seniors, in which people who lived alone hung a yellow flag from morning to evening on their balconies or rooftops, somewhere easy to see from outside, so their neighbors would know they were okay. If a flag wasn't raised or lowered at the appointed time, someone who noticed the irregularity could visit the home and make sure its occupant was safe. Of course, hanging a yellow flag is all well and good, wrote Nisiko, but it also creates a risk. A person of ill intent may see the flag and learn that the house is home to an older person on their own. If a person picked up a box lunch every day instead of hanging a flag, the risk would be reduced. Plus, they would have an additional benefit as well: deeper social interaction. The chairman was quite taken with this idea, and the Majiko branch was selected for the trial program. On his orders, Shiba quickly made the rounds of the building's residential floors, knocking at every door. Naturally, he signed up quite a few participants, far exceeding the minimum specified by headquarters, and they began to plan. The trial launched smoothly, with no major issues, and had grown to the point where it was slated to expand to other locations at the end of the year. Mitsuri figured that since he'd put so much effort into getting everything up and running smoothly, he'd be ready for a break, but Shiba still hung out with the seniors and acted as a conversation partner, even during his free time. Nomiya was put out by the attention the letters received from the chairman. "Doesn't it bug you that he calls Nisiko his counselor?" he asked Shiba, looking annoyed. "You do all the real work." But Shiba just smiled. The women gathered around Shiba, blushing like young girls. He smiled at each one in turn and said, "Shall we go next door? If we stay here, we'll bother the other customers." "Yes, yes," said the ladies in their sweetest voices. "Mrs. Nakao, may we have the ladies' bento lunches, please?" "Yes, of course." Mitsuri took the check sheet and gave a quick scan of the ladies' faces. As she checked them off the list, she listened to their chatter as they filed into the adjoining room. "Will reservations be open soon for summer eel?" "I'm going to order 2. "Really?" "I'm getting 5 myself. I'll give a few to my daughter and her husband." "Oh, Mrs. Komodo, is it okay to order that many?" "Well, we're getting 8, I think." "Dearie, you'll eat with us, won't you?" "That's our Pharaoh manager," Mitsuri said under her breath. It looked like sales would be good again if things kept on like this. She giggled as the door melody rang out once more and glanced over as a man lumbered slowly in. "Oh, the whatever guy," Mitsuri thought to herself. The man was one of the store's regulars. He had shaggy hair and a beard like Shoei's, fully covering the bottom half of his face. He always wore a light green coverall. It was possibly his only outfit, with white bubble letters on the back reading, "Whatever Guy." His customary ride was a white mini truck, now sitting in the store's car park. On the tailgate was written, "Junk Removal, Leave your problems to the whatever guy. The truck was always loaded with old fridges and broken-limbed mannequins, so he must have been a junkman. She wasn't sure about the problems part. The man always spent a long time in the store. He worked his way through the aisles, looking at everything from the book corner to the beverage section to the household items. She kept a close eye on him at first, but it seemed he just liked to browse. He's here again. That customer. What's his deal? Nomiya said in a low voice. He had quietly drawn near to Mitsuri, never letting his suspicious gaze drop from the man. Shoei says he doesn't know much about him, so he must be really shady. Really? That's amazing, replied Mitsuri. To make his tourist maps, Shoei was always running around town collecting the latest news. He boasted that he was Majiko's top informant. In fact, there wasn't much that Shoei didn't know if you asked him. Had he finally met his match? The man had been coming in since Mitsuri started at the store. She'd had several chances to address him, but he never offered more than a syllable in reply, "Oh yes," or "well." A former colleague of hers at the store had surmised that he had some particularly severe form of social anxiety disorder, but if that were the case, he'd have difficulty working in the junk collection business, wouldn't he? It seemed as if he kept a deliberate distance around him somehow. She had the sense that he liked his privacy. Also, he could be trouble, Nomiya whispered, dropping his voice another notch. Actually, I saw him together with the store manager at the Joyful restaurant in Majiko. Just the two of them. Really? She exclaimed loudly, without thinking, then hurriedly covered her mouth. Did Shiba's wiles extend even to the whatever guy? But a lover's tryst at a family restaurant, the two of them feeding each other cheeseburgers? Would the manager do that? It seemed impossible to imagine, but she couldn't resist trying. He handed the manager a package. Nomiya continued, or it looked like that anyway. Was it some kind of payoff? What? Mitsuri's jaw dropped and a meaningless gasp escaped her. Together with the Ayumu business, today was a day of too many surprises. Mitsuri was speechless, but then with a start she pulled herself together. Okay, this won't do at all. I'm going to the stockroom for a minute. You keep an eye on things here. Mitsuri emerged from the back, arms full of bento lunches for the people waiting in the dine-in space. As she was carrying them over, she noticed the man happily perusing the shelves, basket in hand. He was still standing there when she returned. In his basket, she saw an assortment of sausages and a large spaghetti pepperoncino. The man clearly liked variety and always put together a selection of small dishes. Lately, he seemed to be particularly taken with spaghetti pepperoncino, a pasta with chili, garlic, and olive oil. Pepperoncino was also a favorite of Mitsuri's son Kozai, and she was just thinking it might be nice to make it for dinner that evening when she had a sudden idea. Oh, this was her chance to speak to the man. But was it okay to ask? She faltered for a moment, but really her mind had been made up from the moment she had the thought. Excuse me, she called out to the man, who was scanning the drinks in the beverage section, and he slowly turned. The eyes under his floppy fringe met hers. Mitsuri was startled for a moment, and it occurred to her that she and the man had never faced each other properly. He was so covered in hair that she hadn't noticed previously, but he seemed surprisingly youthful. Was he around the same age as Shiba? There was something special about those determined, dark eyes. "What is it?" the man asked quietly. You're a junk collector, right? I was wondering if you accepted broken bicycles. The other day, Kozai had come home with a broken bicycle. It had been wrecked somehow, and the frame had been crushed beyond any likely hope of repair. She thought they should get rid of it, but somehow it was still lying around in the yard. I do, but where is it? I got more than a syllable. Feeling a small sense of accomplishment, Mitsuri replied, "At my house." "And your house is where?" "About 10 minutes from here on foot." She told him the address, and the man nodded. "I'll come around soon. If you have other things you want to toss, I can take them at the same time. Bicycles are free, but for some items there may be a recycling fee. Just be aware of that." "Oh, okay." Deep down, Mitsuri was quite surprised at the gentleness of the man's voice and manner. She had imagined he would be brusque and unfriendly, even when he was at work. Hold on. Oh, wait. Here it is." The man fished around in his overall pockets and pulled out a piece of paper. "Right, here you go," he said, and handed over a business card with the same lettering that was printed on his back, "Whatever Guy." Then, in small letters, a mobile phone number. "If something comes up, you can reach me here. Junk removal and problems." So what kind of problems do you mean?" This was the question she had been wanting to ask for so long. She raised her gaze from the business card and looked at him. "Whatever's bothering you, I take care of it," he replied. "When I go to older people's homes, I get asked to do a lot of chores or odd jobs. Moving furniture, shopping, that sort of thing. So I figured I might as well write that." Makes sense, Mitsuri thought. "Oh, there's no name here on the card." The man scratched his cheek. "When I ordered the cards, I forgot to put that in." He looked a little embarrassed, then added, "Tsugi." "Sorry. You can call me Tsugi." Tsugi. An unusual name, Mitsuri thought. I wonder what characters he uses to write it? Harbor Tree, City Castle, something like that? Just as she was about to ask, a string of customers entered the store. "Sorry, I have to get back to work now. But it was nice to meet you." Mitsuri wanted to talk more with Tsugi. Reluctantly, she returned to work. The best part of Mitsuri's day came at 10 p.m. when her husband went to bed. She called it her golden time. She arranged her things neatly on the dining table: a laptop, a tablet, a half-read manga, and her phone. All she needed was a cup of freshly brewed coffee, and she was good to go. Lots of material today, that's for sure. Mitsuri took a sip of hot coffee and giggled to herself. Just learning the name of the young beautician would have been wonderful enough, but that he was already under the clutches of their pharaoh manager, that was a real coup. And on top of that, she had got a little closer to the mystery man. Ayumu is definitely going into the Friday installment. The laptop was powered on, with the browser open to the top 10 list on Pix4.com. Pixiv was a website for artists devoted to sharing original manga comics online. Mitsuri ran her finger down the list to third place, Pharaoh Manager's Indecent Diary. She giggled again. Who would have thought that the manga that I drew could have become so popular? It's like a dream. Mitsuri loved manga truly, madly, deeply. She had been drawing her own comics since middle school. She kept it up through high school and college, and even started submitting her work to manga magazines, although she never made the final cut. Then she fell head over heels in love with a man she had met, and they were married. Before she knew it, they were blessed with a child, and after that the days seemed to fly by in a frenzy. Eventually, her relationship with her husband settled into a pleasant routine, while their only child began to crave independence, and she remembered her old drawings. Once she started to feel that she had some time to herself, naturally, the first thing she thought of was manga. We live in an amazing time, Mitsuri thought. Anything you make, you just post it on the internet and everyone can see. Back in the day, she would publish fanzines with friends, desperate to get their work out, but if they didn't sell, they'd end up in a stack of remainders. They were all driven to tears, hoping for someone, anyone, to read them. Now the number of readers was growing all the time, and she got all sorts of encouraging comments. So much fun. Can't wait for the next installment. It was really a wonderful time. Well, all of that is thanks to the Pharaoh manager. Anyway, she said to herself, sometimes you need money to fully enjoy a hobby. Mitsuri had originally taken the job at the store because she wanted a tablet, but she thought it was fate that she met Mr. Shiba there. When Mitsuri learned that Shiba was just the manager, a hired hand like the rest of them, she was moved. What a perfect manga character he was. A convenience store manager, throwing love bombs everywhere. Just perfect. It was too funny. Even while she was clocking in for job training, she was also clocking her boss, gathering notes for her new manga. The more she got to know the store manager, the more interesting he was. Although the aura surrounding him was the last thing you'd expect at a convenience store, he served customers with the greatest care and courtesy. In the Tenderness chain's annual customer service competition, he had been inducted into the Hall of Fame. Strangely, although his entourage of rabid fans continued to expand, girls in high school and junior high were repelled by him. They called his special chemistry facial harassment. His private life was a mystery. First, he would show up at the store on his day off, and then he'd say he was taking a break and they wouldn't see him for several days in a row. One day, Mitsuri spotted him at the Kanmon Strait Museum, walking arm in arm with a beautiful woman in a kimono, and the next, she saw him being carried into the Majiko Premier Hotel by a man even more muscular than Nomiya. Finally, her curiosity got the better of her, and she had to ask, "What kind of people are you associating with?" He brushed off the question with a laugh, saying, "We have to start by clarifying what association means between the two of us." Before she knew it, Mitsuri had become obsessed with Shiba, although it had nothing to do with love or even lust. How could she not make this person into a manga? Shiba would be the main character, and the setting, of course, had to be the convenience store. It would depict the daily life of the Pharaoh manager and the people around him. The title was a perfect fit, Pharaoh Manager's Indecent Diary. She was confident as soon as she began to draw it that there would be interest, but she'd never thought for a second that it would be so popular, even after several years. Does this store manager exist in real life? If so, please tell me where the store is. Bad thoughts. When Mitsuri saw the DM someone had sent to the Twitter account linked to her profile, she laughed. In the beginning, as the manga was slowly starting to grow in popularity, she came clean about the project to Shiba, asking for his consent to continue her work. "I'll stop if it makes you uncomfortable," she said, head bowed, but Shiba's eyes lit up. "That's fantastic," he said. "Feel free to use me as much as you like, but please leave out the name of the store, just in case." "Absolutely, of course," said Mitsuri firmly. Comments had already started to arrive from people wanting to locate the actual Pharaoh manager. She was well aware that to share the location of the store in real life would cause an uproar. After Mitsuri promised to protect his privacy, Shiba lightly replied, "Well, okay then." And that was the end of the matter. "He does exist," she replied to the fan, "but I can't tell you where. If this becomes a nuisance to the store manager, I'll have to cancel the series, so please give up your search." She typed the reply for the umpteenth time, sipping her coffee. Then, as she was responding to the last of the comments, Cozy Eye appeared. He opened the refrigerator door, chugged some milk directly from the carton, and turned to Mitsuri, glowering. "Manga again? Act your age, Mum. Don't be such a freak. Didn't I tell you not to be rude about your mother's hobbies?" Mitsuri pressed her lips together in annoyance. Her son always seemed bothered about her manga. Although when he was little, he would always talk about how Mama was really good at making pictures. It was adorable, but if she reminded him of that now, Cozy Eye would make an even more terrible face, so she decided to keep it to herself. "If you don't like what you're seeing, then go back to your room, please." "I'm going there whether you ask me to or not," he replied. "Oh, by the way, did you ask a junk collector to pick up the bike?" "Why?" she asked, surprised. "Just as I was getting home from school, a little truck pulled up." Cozy Eye took another gulp from the milk carton. "The guy said that you'd asked him to pick up the bike and if it was okay to take it now. That's why. Was he wearing a beard? Like Mr. Shoei? He couldn't have come already." But Cozy Eye nodded. His beard looked like old red, but aside from that he was totally different. He was really young, you know. He paused. "Not that it really matters, but he was interesting. Also, he seemed kind of cool." "Cool." Another surprise. "But you could hardly see his face." "I think there's a good-looking face under that beard. It's for the best that women can't see it," he said matter-of-factly. Grown-up words for a boy who just turned 16, Mitsuri thought. "Anyway, I gave him the bike, so." And with that, Cozy Eye returned to his room. Wow, that was fast. Mitsuri took the card she had been given earlier out of her bag and looked at it. She hadn't been aware of it until now, but apparently she had been looking forward to contacting him. She found herself slightly disappointed. "My funny guy sensor is going off." Sugi had something special about him. She could feel it. A few days later, Yurata, who was always first in line for the bento lunches, didn't show up. The other members had all picked up their lunches and finished eating, and still there was no sign of him, so Mitsuri called the phone number they had on file. There was no response. She told Shiba, who thought he should go over to Yurata's apartment to check on the situation. Yurata's place was about a 10-minute walk from the store. He probably just overslept, or had a medical appointment, or something like that, he said. Similar incidents had happened before, and each time it turned out to be a simple miscommunication. Mitsuri assumed this one would be no different. "See you soon," she said lightly, but about 15 minutes later, she heard an ambulance siren in the distance, and her legs went weak. "Oh no, I hope." Instantly, her head was full of unpleasant possibilities. She exchanged glances with Nomiya, who had just come in to work. "I've got a bad feeling about this," muttered Shoei, who was buying a bottle of banana latte, his drink of choice. Mitsuri put a hand to her chest, heart racing. She had always known in her head that something like this might happen someday, but it was still upsetting. The ambulance probably had nothing to do with Yurata, she told herself, but it seemed like it had been forever and Shiba hadn't returned. Her anxiety increased. "I'll just go check on them," said Shoei, who had been keeping an eye on the dine-in space. Mitsuri bowed her head, saying sorry for the trouble. Shoei pedaled off on his cargo bike, and when he returned a scant 10 minutes later, a single look at his face told Mitsuri that her fears had become reality. "It seems he collapsed at home." Mitsuhiko said he would go with him. "Oh, is it?" "Mitsuhiko will probably let us know more soon. Let's wait to hear from him." It was about 2 hours more before Shiba checked in. "He's okay," he said, in a voice both exhausted and relieved. "The prognosis is still unclear, but he survived." Apparently, Yurata had suffered a stroke and collapsed. If he had been taken to the hospital just a little later, he might not have survived. "I've just contacted his daughter in Yamaguchi Prefecture," Shiba said. "I'll stay here until she arrives." "I understand," Mitsuri replied. "It must be hard for you too. Hang in there." Mitsuri had taken the call in the staff room. When she returned to the front of the store, there were a number of people standing by the checkout counter. She panicked, thinking she had left customers waiting, but it was Shoei and the members of the Ladies' Association. They had surrounded Nomiya and were grilling him. What could have happened to old Yurata? "I finally got him to talk the other day, but he didn't say anything about being ill. The body wears out when you get older, you know. You have to be careful." Mitsuri waded into the chattering ring of people. "I'm told Mr. Yurata will be okay," she said. "It's a good thing the manager discovered him so quickly." The faces around her brightened. "Oh my, yes indeed. You get a lot of unpleasant news at this age, but at least it wasn't the worst news, if you know what I mean. It's just like that dear man, isn't it? Always looking out for his customers." In no time, the subject had moved on to singing Shiba's praises, and after everyone had enjoyed the conversation for a while, they went home. Eventually, the evening staff arrived for their shift. After Mitsuri had completed the changeover, she stepped into the staff room and found Nomiya still there, although his shift had ended before hers. He was sitting in somewhat of a daze, staring at his phone on the table in front of him. "What's wrong, Nomiya?" He looked up slowly at the sound of Mitsuri's voice, his face twisted in pain. "Hey, are you feeling sick?" she asked in surprise, but he shook his head. She asked him again what was wrong, and with a weak voice he responded, "Mr. Yurata." "I get it. It all happened so quickly, it was a shock. But we're lucky it ended well, right? And our lunch service worked pretty well, too, didn't it?" Mitsuri almost added, but thought better of it. Nomiya looked up at Mitsuri through tearful eyes. He bit his bottom lip as if trying to restrain the tears, but they kept coming. Hey there. Hey. What is it? Mitsuri wasn't sure why Nomiya was crying. She took a seat opposite him and waited for him to calm down. At last, he opened his mouth. I always ignore people's signs. Signs? Mitsuri parroted, tilting her head in confusion. Still in distress, Nomiya gazed down at his own tears on the table in front of him. In high school, there was this guy I'd always practice with, Takagi. At some point I realized that he was in bad shape. He wasn't moving right and seemed worn out, and, well, also he told me himself he had been feeling weird lately. But I didn't think about it much, just figured he was fatigued or needed sleep. If I had just told him then to go to the hospital, his illness might not have got so bad. Nomiya gulped, as if trying to swallow his tears. I told him. I told him that when we got to university, we'd keep wrestling together, but now he can't do anything like that anymore. I feel so bad about that. Mitsuri looked at Nomiya. So that's what happened. That's why he gave up wrestling. That's bouncing around in my head, and I can't get it out. I wanted to make sure that if something like this ever happened again, I wouldn't regret it the same way as last time, but... His hands clenched on the table. His fists, large and rugged as two boulders, were trembling. The other day when I brought Mr. Urata his lunch, he said, "My head hurts." His head? You remember there was a day when Mr. Urata's mood was worse than usual? That day, I asked if something was bothering him. He yelled at me and said his head hurt and he couldn't help it, could he? And if I kept talking to him like a loudmouth, it would only hurt more. So would I please just shut up? So finally I got ticked off and stopped talking. Then he told me to leave because I was ruining his lunch, so I did. Here, Nomiya said, and held out his phone. It seemed he had been looking up information about strokes. One of the warning signs was a headache, it said. I did the exact same thing again. I spent so much time in my head about it, thinking no way ever again will I let this happen. I was sure that was enough, but I was a total failure. Just because I got a little mad. Hey, well, you know Mr. Urata is always in a bad mood. If I'd been in your shoes, I think I would have done my best to ignore him too. Mitsuri thought back to that day. Certainly Mr. Urata had been in a foul mood from the moment he had entered the store. But she too had paid it no mind, thinking it was just the usual state of affairs. If Nomiya was at fault, then she was equally so. But Nomiya stood up so forcefully his chair knocked backwards on the floor with a loud bang. That's not the point, he shouted. It's got nothing to do with what someone else would do. To tear myself apart about this for so long, and then when the crucial moment comes, to make the same mistake again? I can't forgive myself, and there's nothing I can do about it. Mitsuri could do nothing but goggle at his fierce display. When he noticed her look, Nomiya's face contorted again. I can't help shouting, do you understand? I'm furious at myself. Really, I'm the worst. I am. With that, Nomiya fled the room. Mitsuri hurriedly chased after him, but when she exited the store, he was nowhere in sight. She went back into the store and turned to Hirose, who was now working the checkout counter. Hey, do you know which way Nomiya went? He shook his head. What's up with him? He blew out of here on his moped like his life depended on it. Oh, that's dangerous, she thought. Hirose's concerned tone only heightened Mitsuri's anxiety. Nomiya was tormenting himself. She couldn't leave things like this. What to do? What to do? She wanted to contact Shiba, but he was probably still at the hospital. So what could she do? She thought frantically, and then the white piece of paper popped into her mind. The business card, she exclaimed reflexively, rummaging in her handbag. Snatching it out, she dialed the number on the card. A few rings, and then she heard a low voice on the other end of the line. Hello, she said. This is Mitsuri, the clerk at Tenderness. Her heart beat just a little faster. Remember I was asking you about what sort of problems you handled? Well, I've got one here. I was wondering if I could ask you a favor. There was a low chuckle on the other end of the line. What do you need? The dine-in space at Golden Villa Tenderness was fully kitted out. There were 5 counter seats with a view of the street outside and 2 four-top tables. On each of these was a small vase for a seasonal flower, currently sunflowers, and a box of tissues. At one end of the room was a hot water dispenser for tea and a toaster, along with a rubbish bin. There was talk among the building residents of installing a television in the room as well. Fidgeting in a seat at one end of the counter, Mitsuri stared out the window, oblivious to all else. The sun had completely set, and a cream-colored moon hung in the sky. A gentle night breeze flowed in through the open doors. Mitsuri fiddled with her phone, killing time, her eyes focused blindly on the screen. Oh. As Mitsuri's gaze swept the scene outside for what seemed like the 100th time, her face brightened. A familiar mini-truck had pulled slowly into the car park. In the back of the truck were a washing machine, a vacuum cleaner, and Nomiya's motorbike. The heavily bearded driver noticed Mitsuri watching him and raised a hand. Next to him, she could see Nomiya, head sagging. Oh, you found him. Thank you. She jumped up and ran towards the little truck. As he exited the truck, Sugi's big beard split into a toothy grin. He was making a face like he was going to die, but he didn't. When Mitsuri had called Sugi, she asked him if could find a missing person, and he had replied simply, of course. In fact, he had added, it was his speciality. Mitsuri told him she wanted him to look for Nomiya, and he quickly replied, the muscly part-timer, as if he understood. He had shown no interest in the staff, so she hadn't thought he would actually grasp the situation at all. He was so mad at himself that he panicked and disappeared on his motorbike, Mitsuri had explained. I'm afraid something awful could happen to him. Can I ask you to look for him? Sugi was silent for a moment, as if he were considering. Got it, he replied. Where are you calling from now? Tenderness, as usual. Okay, can you wait there, please? I'll bring him as soon as possible. Oh, are you sure? I told you, I'm good at this. He had seemed confident, but she never expected him to find Nomiya so quickly. I'm glad you're safe. She smiled at Nomiya as he clambered out of the truck. Sorry, he replied in a faint, embarrassed voice, hanging his head. Mitsuri, you should be home at this hour. It's my fault you're not. I already went home. I made dinner and came back, so it's fine. Don't worry about it. She smiled at the young man's concern for her, even at a time like this, and continued. You must be hungry. I'd really like to take you somewhere to eat, but Pharaoh, the manager will be coming back soon. So let's wait for him in the dine-in space and I'll get you something from the store. When she had contacted Shiba to let him know what was going on, he'd told her to have some food and wait there for him. Regarding Nomiya's disappearance, he wanted to know who she had called for help. He seemed surprised at the answer. Shiba said he had always figured the two of them would meet at some point, but, well, what timing? Anyway, from what he knew, the guy would find Nomiya quickly enough, no doubt, so she had made the right choice. But, well, she got the feeling somehow that Shiba would rather not have involved Sugi. I wonder what's up between those two? Curiouser and curiouser. Beating back the devil that was starting to dance in the corner of her mind, Mitsuri smiled at Sugi. Would you join us, Mr. Whatever Guy? It's on the house, courtesy of the manager. As I said, call me Tsugi. And thanks, I suppose I can't say no to that. His tone was a little informal, but added nothing to her knowledge of him. And the way he further said, actually, I'm pretty hungry, and patted his belly was quite normal, not strange at all. Nomiya, why don't you wait in the dine-in area while I get some food? How about the pork cutlet bowl? That seems to be your favorite lately. Nomiya shook his head. I've lost my appetite. But you hardly touched your lunch. You should eat something. Usually, he could put away as many as 3 servings in a flash. Won't his muscles wither away if he misses a couple of meals? She wondered. But I don't want to eat. How about a sandwich? Pasta salad? If he eats just a bite, it could jumpstart his appetite. Mitsuri suggested everything that she could think of, but Nomiya wouldn't yield. Why don't I just go get a few things? Sugi, who had been watching the exchange from the sidelines, broke in. You talk to the kid. I'll buy the food. Okay, but it's fine, it's fine. We'll settle up the bill later. Okay, Mitsu. With that, Sugi disappeared into the main store with his lopsided, easygoing gait. He's a strange one, isn't he? Nomiya said under his breath. I was sitting in Mekuri Park, not thinking anything, just staring out at the ocean, when he came right up to me just as if he knew exactly where I'd be. He said, Mitsuri is waiting for you, so it's time to go. Mekuri Park was famous in the area for its beautiful nighttime views, but how in the world had Sugi known the young man would be there? It was unbelievable, Mitsuri agreed, nodding, but at the same time, the devil of curiosity was dancing around like crazy on her shoulder as she wondered about Sugi. Mitsu? He called me Mitsu. Isn't that a little too intimate? She was sitting across from Nomiya at one of the foretops in the dine-in area when Sugi returned, carrying a large plastic bag in each hand. I've got food, he said cheerily. I bought a ton. Shopping with other people's money is the best. He flopped down next to Nomiya and started pulling all sorts of foods from the bags, one item after the next. There was a large pepperoncino pasta and an assortment of sausages, 2 of each. There was a spaghetti carbonara and a katsudon, breaded pork cutlets with egg over rice. A container of kimchi, a ham and cheese sandwich, piled high with lettuce and some soft-boiled eggs. There were 3 servings each of creme caramel pudding and dorayaki, sponge cake sandwiches stuffed with red bean filling and whipped cream. Right, now we eat. Mitsuri couldn't help but smile at his giddy high spirits. He sounded like a child with all his favorite foods laid out before him. Don't hold back, Mr. Tsugi. You must be hungry. Okay then, let's dig in. You there, which do you want? He turned to Nomiya, but when Nomiya shook his head, Tsugi reached for the spaghetti carbonara. He also broke open the sausage assortment and topped the pasta with them, and on top of those he placed a soft-boiled egg. A meal fit for a king. That's happiness. With a smile, Tsugi happily laid into the food. He dunked the sausage in the sauce and ate it, inhaled some of the pasta, stopping halfway through to gently break the soft-boiled egg he had added to the dish. Good, he murmured, chewing on pasta coated in bright yellow egg yolk. You enjoy eating, don't you? Mitsuri said, watching Tsugi eat with gusto, and he nodded between bites. The greatest pleasure in life is to eat good food while talking about how good it is. He polished off the carbonara and reached for the peperoncino. Watching Tsugi enjoy his meal, Mitsuri began to feel hungry, even though she had eaten a light dinner while she was home. She reached for a pudding, since there were 3 of those. Nomiya, please have something too. Nomiya must have felt at least a little bit hungry watching the 2 of them, but he still wouldn't touch anything from the array of foods in front of him. She could see a glimmer of desire flickering in his eyes as he watched Tsugi packing away his feast, but he didn't even bother to pick up his chopsticks. I'm okay. He kept repeating stubbornly, no matter how often Mitsuri pressed him. You can starve yourself, kid, but the old man's condition won't change. Tsugi spoke brusquely, as if he were irritated by the endless back and forth. In response, Nomiya's eyes filled with tears. Mitsuri hurriedly held out a handkerchief, but Nomiya wiped his eyes with the back of his hands. I'm really sorry, he said. Sorry I caused so much trouble for everyone. It's really okay, Mitsuri reassured him. You know how much I like nosing into other people's lives. I probably worried too much about you. I'm sure you would have been fine on your own. I just don't understand. I'm so pathetic. Why do I have to be this way? Nomiya bit his lip in frustration. I think it's because you're such a kind young man. You can't beat yourself up like that just because you didn't notice. Next time will be different. The next time wasn't different for me, Nomiya said in a pained voice. Mitsuri searched for the words to respond. First of all, I'm not kind, Nomiya continued. I'm selfish. In Takagi's case, I didn't think about anything but winning my tournament. When it was Yurata's turn, all I thought about was talking back to a cranky old man. I feel bad about that now, though. Look, none of us are saints. I can be self-centered myself. And this time in particular, it's really not your fault. What if you had noticed and suggested that Yurata go to the hospital? He probably wouldn't have listened to you anyway. So you can't fret about it like that. Nomiya just shook his head and kept crying as if he couldn't even hear Mitsuri's words. She sighed to herself. How could she make him understand? You should try it like this. It's really delicious. Tsugi interrupted. While they were talking, Tsugi had polished off his peperoncino and placed the katsudon in front of Nomiya. Then, on top of it, He deposited a generous portion of kimchi. The golden brown of the cutlet was perfectly balanced by the yellow egg yolk and green scallions, and with the bright red pickles as a garnish, Nomiya couldn't help but say, "Wow, what are you doing? I can't eat something like that." "You can. It's delicious." Sugi held out a pair of chopsticks to Nomiya. "Take them." When Nomiya seemed reluctant to take them, Sugi paused for just a moment, then pressed them into his hands, saying, "Now eat, or it will get cold." Sugi's tone sharpened, and Nomiya accepted the chopsticks as if compelled. Then, gingerly, he lifted a piece of cutlet covered with kimchi and egg, onions and sauce, but his face darkened. "Hold on," Sugi quickly intervened. "I'm forgetting something important." "Wait a minute. Here you go." Rummaging through the bags, he pulled out a small packet of mayonnaise. He opened it and squeezed it back and forth over the kimchi-covered cutlets. Nomiya said, "Wow," again, but then in an abject voice continued, "I meant to say, I don't deserve to eat anything like this." Frowning at the bowl of food, Nomiya's expression changed slightly. Curiously, Mitsuri watched him as he gazed intently at the katsudon. "That's it," she murmured. Was it the delicate latticework of mayonnaise lacing the top that whetted his appetite? She had to admit it looked delicious. Nomiya silently conveyed the fully dressed morsel of pork to his mouth. He chewed and then took another, larger bite. He was gathering momentum steadily. "Good, isn't it?" asked Sugi, and Nomiya nodded vigorously. Once he started eating, it was like a switch had been flipped. Nomiya bolted down the katsudon with even more vigor than usual. In an instant, more than half of it had vanished. But in the middle of all that, suddenly, his chopsticks stilled, and again, the tears began to flow. I'm stuffing myself when I should be concerned. It just seems." Once again, Nomiya faltered. "Move your chopsticks," Sugi responded curtly. "It's natural to feel that good things are good," he said with some exasperation between bites of the sandwich, into which he had inserted the leftover sausages. "Say your parents die. You're still going to get hungry. If you can't taste what's good, something really is wrong with you. What I mean is, to eat without enjoying yourself is to disrespect the food." Making short work of his sandwich, Sugi then placed a peperoncino pasta in front of Nomiya, saying, "Here, this is your share," and adding forcefully, "Now, don't think. Eat." Under heavy pressure, Nomiya lifted his chopsticks again. "The more we suffer, the more we should eat. If you don't get enough nutrition, it distorts your thinking." Nomiya finished the katsudon and reached for the pasta. Sugi plunked down a sausage on top. Nomiya, who had been eating in silence for a while, mumbled something. Mitsuri pricked up her ears, trying to hear what he was saying. "It's good." Sugi nodded. "Isn't it? Now pay some attention to your food." Nomiya continued to eat without speaking. Mitsuri felt that something like life was slowly returning to his face. Then she took a surreptitious glance at Sugi. What an extraordinary person. "When I told you to eat, I had no idea how much." "How many servings was that?" Mitsuri giggled. Then she looked over at the side door to the store. There stood Shiba. He looked a little tired, which was not surprising since he had been detained since noon. "Sorry I'm late. Mr. Yurata's daughter likes to talk." So we talked for quite a while, and time kept passing. Shiba seated himself next to Mitsuri, and Nomiya broke off from his meal again, but Shiba urged him on. Eat, eat. He waited for Nomiya to finish, a gentle smile playing across his face, then spoke. Listen to this. Mr. Yurata says he looked forward to it. Huh? Nomiya looked up. Mr. Yurata said he looked forward to visiting the store every day. He told his daughter on the phone. The staff are always cheerful, and they smile at me even when I'm in a bad mood, he said. He got to know people in similar situations to his, and it made him want to get out of the house more often. Also, he has a grandson who's a high school junior. Shiba chuckled to remember it. The kid came to the hospital too. He was on his school rugby team, a total muscle man. He said his grandfather was always talking about how much he resembled Nomiya. Me? He told his grandson that there was a kid working at the store who had a much better physique than him, but for some reason he had given up on the team and was just frittering his time away. Apparently, he was really worried about it. Come to think of it, Nomiya said quietly, when I first started here, he asked me if I did any clubs. I told him I used to be on a wrestling team, but now I've quit, and he scolded me. He said it was a waste, not making use of my gifts. Then after that, whenever he saw me, he'd say my muscles were a waste, and that I had better things to do than working for pay. I thought he was saying all that just to be mean, Nomiya said, downcast. I guess he really had high hopes for you. He had a gruff way of showing it, so you didn't get it. It wasn't easy to understand. It was hard for me too. Shiba spoke gently. It's hard to know what's inside a person. If you judge people only by their words and faces, you miss the really important things. But then, what should we do instead? I think it's best to let people's actions speak for themselves. Mr. Yurata actually enjoyed coming to our convenience store. That's the real story, isn't it? Every day, he was the first one in. So when it seemed like he just kept mocking Nomiya, that must have been Yurata's way of cheering him on. Nomiya's expression twisted oddly. Now, here's my idea. Mr. Yurata is alive and well, and when he recovers a little more, he'll be able to have a conversation. Why don't you visit him for a little talk? Shiba smiled. What do you think? He put his hand on Nomiya's, which were clasped together on the table. You can have regrets in life, but that doesn't mean you can't do something about them. It's okay. Nomiya closed his eyes as if he were thinking just a little, then pieced together a few words in response. I do want to go. I want to go see Mr. Yurata. I want to speak to him properly, and I want to apologize. Shiba smiled. Why don't we go together next time? I'm sure Mr. Yurata would like that. For the first time that day, something like a smile flitted across Nomiya's face. Mitsuri heaved a sigh of relief to see him brighten up, even just a little. So it's settled? In that case, have a dorayaki. Sugi held out one of the sponge cakes to Nomiya. Nomiya smiled in thanks and then shook off Shiba's hand, which was still clasping his. This kind of thing is a clear case of sexual harassment. Ack. Shiba let out a helpless croak. Watching the scene, Sugi burst into laughter, and Nomiya turned to him, continuing, Mr. Whatever Guy, looks like you ate my share of the pudding. I love pudding. I want some more, please. Now it was Tsugi's turn to howl. The Golden Villa Tenderness branch was always understaffed. This was because so few people could withstand Shiba's charms. After Nomiya resigned, a friend had begged him to rejoin the wrestling team. The burden of covering the various shifts at the store had fallen largely on Mitsuri and Shiba. Ugh, I'm exhausted. Mr. Shiba, please hire someone quickly. I wish I could. Lots of people show up for the interviews, but it's not that easy to find someone who can actually do the job. The staff room was empty except for the two of them, who had been working without a day off for who knows how long. Resting her face on the table, Mitsuri heaved a deep sigh. Shiba sighed too, as if in reply. When Nomiya left, they had hired a middle-aged gentleman who had taken early retirement, but somehow the man's wife had fallen for Shiba, and after one thing led to another, it ended in a divorce. To avoid a crisis, they had to let the man go. The staff had been running themselves ragged trying to do their jobs while also stopping to mediate fights between the wife, who had turned into Shiba's stalker, and her furious husband. Manager, can't you wear a horse mask or something like that while you work? Mitsuri asked in despair. We need to hide that face of yours. Mrs. Nakao, if I do, you'll have to change the name of your manga to The Horse Manager, okay? Yuck. On second thought, the two of them sighed. Then there was a knock on the door and Hirose's head popped into view. Manager, the whatever guy came and asked for you. He's waiting in the dine-in space. Is that okay? Should I tell him you're not here? No, tell him I'll be there in a moment, Shiba replied. He pulled himself together and stood up. Oh, excuse me, Mitsuri asked, but is it okay if I come too? That's fine, but... Mrs. Nakao, why do you look so pleased? Well, I haven't seen him since that night. After Nomiya had settled down, Mitsuri had thought it would be a great opportunity to ask Tsugi a few questions, but a work call came in and he had to rush out. After that, it was like the line had gone dead somehow, and he stopped coming to the shop. She wondered why. Well, you know me. I was worried about him. I see new material written all over your face. That's it, isn't it? No, that's not it at all. Mitsuri gulped. She'd been found out, she thought, but tried to cover it up anyway. Look, I never had the chance to pay him back for the food that night. Oh, I've already paid him, so you're fine. Huh, she said, involuntarily. Were they meeting outside the shop somewhere then? Mitsuri's imagination was already percolating when Shiba said, I guess it's probably time I came clean. He paused. Mrs. Nakao, you are the shop's senior employee. It's been for years, hasn't it? That's a decent stretch, wouldn't you say? What? There's something I've been hiding from you. With a sigh, Shiba left the staff room. Head spinning in confusion, she followed him to the dine-in space, and there was Tsugi, wolfing down a bento lunch. It was the same pork cutlet bowl slathered with kimchi as the other day, and for some reason Shoei was sitting opposite him. Tsugi was wearing the usual coveralls, but this time they were caked with mud, as if he had been wandering around in a mountain forest. Green leaves protruded from his unkempt hair, and the strong arms jutting from his rolled-up sleeves were covered in scratches. Hey, sorry to pull you away. It's not a problem, but what have you been up to? You're a mess. Am I? Oh, on the way here, I was helping a few woodsmen. In return, they gave me some wild boar meat. Need any? No, I don't, said Shiba, but Shoei grinned. I'm partial to boar myself, he said. Then you take half. Or maybe we can have it all at your place. It's good for grilling. That'll do. Oh? Shoei knows Sugi. Mitsuri piped up in surprise from behind Shiba, where she was standing. She didn't know they knew each other that well. Seeing Mitsuri, Sugi said, hello, and bowed his head in greeting, then added to Shiba, sorry, I thought it was just you. Shoei, too, hurriedly said, whoops, sorry, and lapsed into silence. No, it's okay. It's okay. I decided I couldn't keep it from her forever, so I brought her in. Shiba glanced back at Mitsuri. So here goes, Mitsuri. This man, he said, gesturing towards Tsugi, he's my older brother. Huh. For a moment, the word brother failed to compute. My second oldest brother, Nihiko. She looked back and forth between Shiba and Tsugi in turn. Out of the corner of her eye, she could see Shoei grinning widely. No, wait a second. The two of them looked nothing alike. Nothing alike at all. Could the walking pheromone factory and this gruff, disheveled man be brothers? But he said Tsugi. That's his nickname. There are 5 of us. Ichihiko, Nihiko, Mitsuhiko, Yahiko. Using the Japanese for 1, 2, 3, 4. But adding Hiko that all the time got too complicated. So we just call each other Ichi, Tsugi, Mitsu, and Yan. I guess our parents got lazy, Shiba said, looking a little embarrassed. Mitsuri's mind was swimming. It was too much for her to take in. Wait a minute. You said 5 brothers? Are any of them like you? If it's 5, then who's the 5th? And what's he called? The 5th is a sister. Her name is Jewel. I'm sorry, that's a lot, isn't it? I'm still trying to put it all together. Mitsuri staggered over to the table and took a seat opposite Tsugi. So that was why he had called her Mitsu earlier, wasn't it? It was a family habit. Behind his hair, his eyes flickered with amusement. Mitsuri noticed something in those eyes. The true nature of the discomfort she had felt earlier. His eyes were the one way that Tsugi really resembled Shiba. They surprised you, didn't they, Mitsuri? Me too, when I first heard. Shoei laughed and rumpled Tsugi's leaf-strewn hair. It seems like a story someone made up, doesn't it now? That Majiko's most suspicious man is brother to its most mysterious. Although he always says that he realized it right away, Shiba noted. Anyway, why did the 3 of you keep it a secret from me? Mitsuri puffed up her cheeks and pouted a little, despondent over her lack of observational skills. Because it's a real pain, Tsugi replied. I can't tell you how much trouble I've got into just because I'm this guy's brother. Once a woman chased me around with a razor, just because she thought I might look a little more like my brother if she shaved my beard. Yipes. Mitsuri shivered in spite of herself. But it wasn't impossible. She had seen Shiba's fans go too far like that every day. Don't blame it all on me, Shiba said. I've been through a thing or two just because I'm your younger brother. I had to fight off a few delinquents and pay off a few bills that I certainly don't remember racking up. In the end, the brothers came to the same conclusion. It's best for everyone if we act like total strangers, said Shiba. So if possible, please don't spread it around. I agree. It just creates unnecessary commotion, said Sugi. Gotcha. I won't let it get out. Even if the story leaked only to the residents of the Golden Villa apartments, there would surely be trouble. At least 3 of the ladies there would fight tooth and nail to be the one to care for their dear Mitsuhiko's older brother. On another subject, Mitsu. I came to give you this. Sugi took a large Tupperware container out of a paper bag. He lifted the lid. Inside, it was filled with ohagi, rice flour dumplings wrapped in red bean paste, packed in neat rows. The rich red bean paste gleamed in the light, glossy and sweet. Wow, Mitsuri said reflexively. Those look delicious. They're our sister's specialty, Tsugi said, a note of pride creeping into his voice. I was home this morning and, well, our sister is big on Mitsuhiko. She gave me these, said, take them to Mitsu. If I didn't bring them to you quick, I'd be in trouble, so I came by. You know I love little sister's ohagi, said Shiba. But she doesn't need to make so many. He explained that his sister, Jewel, was only 17. As he was presented with his much younger sister's handiwork, a look Mitsuri hadn't seen before stole across Shiba's face. If the members of his fan club could see him now, they'd be off their rockers, she thought. Have you had some, big brother? Shiba asked Sugi. Since you went to the trouble of bringing them, let's eat together. She made me eat the funny-shaped ones until I was half dead, Sugi complained. But I guess I could have a few more. You too, Shoei and Mrs. Nakao, said Shiba. How about it? I won't be able to finish them on my own. So the 4 of them purchased paper plates and chopsticks from the store and ate the ohagi. The elegantly sweet red bean paste and the light, springy rice dumplings were delicious. No wonder they call it her specialty, thought Mitsuri, helping herself to more. So how's the little macho man doing? Is he doing his best on the wrestling team? Though he had claimed to have eaten ohagi until he was half dead and gorged himself on katsudon, Sugi was stuffing his belly with the rice dumplings as though it was his first meal of the day. The kid knew how to handle customers, Shiba replied. We lost a talented employee. That's true, Shoei added. Although he's in such good shape, I might just let him inherit my post as Majiko's top informant. The older man, too, was downing the dumplings with a vigor that belied his age. To tell you the truth, it seemed like he didn't want to give up the job here, but now that he's getting serious about wrestling, it would be hard to do both. Not much we can say about that. Shiba, who was carefully lifting a dumpling to his mouth, suddenly paused and smiled. Oh, that's right. He said something that made me really happy, you know. Mitsuri looked at Shiba. He said, everyone who comes to our store lives every day of their lives to the fullest. When I gave up wrestling, I thought my existence had become meaningless. But after spending all day helping people get through their days, I started to feel like it was good to be alive. Mitsuri's eyes crinkled merrily. Nomiya had said that working at the store was his first job. Before that, it had been all about wrestling for him. This oversized boy, unfamiliar with everything at first, trying so desperately to serve customers. She remembered how his face shone the first time a customer complimented him on his good service. A long time ago, there was a girl who said something like that, Shiba said with deep feeling. That one. Shoei said, a note of nostalgia creeping into his voice. Sugi took an emphatic bite of an exceptionally large dumpling and gazed out at the car park. When I heard what she had to say, I decided I'd give this job everything I had. Helping people is a good thing, isn't it? Even if it's just for the tiniest moment in their lives. Shiba's voice echoed gently in Mitsuri's ears. She had never imagined the man felt this way about his work. And with some embarrassment, she had to admit that she had become too used to the work herself, thinking only about completing her roster of daily tasks without incident. She, too, needed to change her way of thinking. "Those words made me who I am today," Shiba said quietly, as if speaking to himself. "I'm glad the store exists." There was no hint of the usual sex appeal or anything dubious on his face. Mitsuri felt like she was seeing his true nature, as fleeting as a drop of dew hidden in a beautiful rose. Perhaps all those people who felt so much for him were simply seeking a glimpse of what she was seeing now. And, she thought, he really loves his job. "Well, I like this job too," she said aloud, "but working like this with no relief? I'm sorry, it's too much." Mitsuri took a joking tone because she knew that she'd never be that close to him. She wasn't that sort of person. The person to do that would have to be special to him. She might not have had great observational skills, but she had accumulated enough life experience to see that. "Hey, now!" The blossom had closed, and Shiba was back to his usual self again. He placed a hand on his chest and laughed. "Don't say that. I'm doing the best I can with the interviews. Mitsu, maybe you ought to wear a mask or something, hey?" Sugi joined in. "Like a horse or a big Buddha." "Leave off, brother," Shiba protested. Mrs. Nakao said the same thing. "No, if anything, it should be one of those full-body cartoon costumes." It was Shoei's turn to chime in. "I have a friend at an event company. Want me to ask?" "Shoei, you too? Give me a break." Listening to the friendly banter, Mitsuri laughed. She had the feeling that the shifts to come would be more fun. The mysterious brothers had more surprises, mysteries, and drama in store, no doubt, and she wanted to know it all. After all, it was good material, wasn't it? Yes, Mitsuri Nakao was living a full life. But I wonder, she thought to herself, I wonder if it's okay for it to be this full. Popping another dumpling in her mouth, Mitsuri laughed merrily.